So today I want to answer a question that I get asked by parents all the time. And that is my kid gonna outgrow these meltdowns? Welcome back to Raised Resilient, where I show you how to end the meltdowns and reclaim your peace without relying on punishments, bribes, yelling, or any other parenting strategies that don't feel good to you and your kid. I'm Dr. Hillary Manzik, clinical psychologist, parenting coach, and mom of 3 kids with really big feelings. Welcome. I am so glad you're here. This is such a good question. And I think when we are sitting in this place where our kid is melting down over tiny things, constantly hitting, kicking, screaming, saying, I hate you, I want a different family, and we are stuck in that cycle with our kid, it is so easy to rationalize it and say, you know what? He's 5, she's 6, he's 3. We don't need to do anything to fix this because she's going to get older, he's going to grow out of it, and we won't be dealing with the meltdowns anymore. And what ends up happening when you say that to yourself is, honestly, everyone keeps suffering, right? You keep white knuckling through bedtime, hoping you don't say the thing that sets your kid off, causes another meltdown. You're tiptoeing around them, walking on eggshells, not setting limits where you need to because you're just like, I don't know what's going to set her off today. That is no way to live, my friend. And if you are in that place, I want to answer this question once and for all because I am telling you the short answer, and I'm going to give you the whole answer. But the short answer is your kid's not going to outgrow this, okay? Now, do kids outgrow behaviors? Sure, right? Sometimes they do. Sometimes they outgrow the actual throwing themselves on the floor, hitting, kicking, screaming, saying, I hate you, meltdowns. Those are outward manifestations of big feelings that are flying out of your kid's body when they get overwhelmed. And what can happen if we don't teach our kids the skills they need to handle those uncomfortable emotions? Because at the end of the day, that's what these feelings are. They're uncomfortable. And if your kid doesn't know how to tolerate discomfort, they might stop melting down outwardly. But I am telling you this right now, if you've got a sensitive, emotionally intense kid, a kid who feels their feelings in a very big way, kids don't outgrow their emotional intensity. So kids who feel their feelings in a big way become adults who feel their feelings in a big way. And if your child doesn't know how to sit in the muck, how to be uncomfortable without trying to fix it, without trying to make it stop, then they are going to look for ways to turn the volume down on those big feelings as they grow. So while you might not see the meltdowns, you might start to see other internalizing behaviors that your child is using to turn the volume down on the big feelings that are making them uncomfortable, which when you really think about it, that makes so much sense. It makes so much sense that if we don't know how to handle something that's uncomfortable, we're gonna try to avoid it. This is a natural thing, we all do it. But what that can look like in your child is at first, it might not look like much. It might look like, oh, she's hitting and kicking and screaming less. But she's also not telling me much about what's going on. And sometimes she seems kind of sad, but I don't really know because she doesn't tell me anything. And anytime I try to talk about emotions, she completely shuts down. Over time, you find that she's spending more time in her room, right? Maybe she's a little more withdrawn. But as your child grows up more and more without those skills to handle uncomfortable things, they might start to do even more potentially dangerous things, like numbing out to screens. So you might already have a kid who likes to watch a TV show when they're upset because it's actually quite adaptive that your kid wants to do that. It's not a good thing to do, but it's adaptive that that's what they want to do, because when we are engaging with a screen, and this is probably true for you too, if you've ever picked up your phone and scrolled Instagram after you just had a fight with your spouse or a difficult day at work, you suddenly feel better, right? But you're not actually feeling better. You're just shutting off your emotional processing system, right? Screens shut off input from the vestibular system, which is how we process emotions. And so it is like an off switch to your emotions. But the problem is your unprocessed emotions, they don't go away. You hit the pause button. And when you go away from that screen, wherever you go, there you are, right? And so Kids will find, even at young ages, that, hey, if I watch an episode of this show or I play a video game, I don't feel upset anymore. So you might already have a kid who tends toward wanting to watch a screen when they are upset. And that can lead to patterns of numbing out to screens. And that's not something that we want to see for our kids. We sometimes see kids numbing out to food or substances, which can lead to substance abuse. We sometimes see self-harm, and that might be cutting, which is really just a way to dull the emotional pain, or something that's more severe and more dangerous to their actual well-being. All of these are essentially maladaptive coping skills because our kids never learned how to tolerate distress without trying to fix it or make it stop. And that is a really important life skill. So how do kids learn that skill? How do we help our kids not get stuck in these maladaptive coping patterns? Here's the thing. There is no shortcut for this. There is no amount of play therapy or coping skills that are going to teach your child to tolerate distress. Because here's the part that most people miss. We can't cope with feelings that we haven't had the space to feel. So if our first go-to when we see that our kid is upset is to try to get them to take deep breaths or go to the calm down corner or pick up a fidget toy or whatever to cope with the feeling, then we are missing an entire important part of this process, the most important part of this process. And that is actually feeling the feeling. So the quickest way for you to be able to help your child tolerate distress is for you to tolerate it with them. Now, in the world of attachment theory, we call this co-regulation. As we sit in the muck of these uncomfortable emotions with our kid, and more importantly, their nervous system learns these feelings are safe. They're not going to take me down. They're not going to last forever. I can tolerate this uncomfortable feeling. Every time that we set a limit, even though we know it's going to cue the meltdown, right? Even though we know they're going to be kicking and screaming and telling us they hate us, and we set that limit anyway, and then we sit with our kids in the muck of their disappointment without trying to fix it, without trying to tell them that they're overreacting or that they need to knock it off and act appropriately. Now, just a note on act appropriately. I am not saying that we should let our kids just throw things and destroy the room and hit us and kick us and be little tornadoes. It is our job to help keep our kids safe, to stop them from doing things that are unsafe with their feelings. So I want you to think about yourself as the gutter guards. Let's imagine your kid is bowling. You're the one keeping that ball in the lane, right? So you're not letting them hit. You're not letting them kick, but you're letting them be mad. You're not trying to fix that. You're not making them wrong or bad for being mad. In fact, you are saying to them, whether with words or not, because sometimes when we are at an 11 out of 10, I would say most times when we're at an 11 out of 10, we can't hear words. But your nervous system is saying to theirs, this makes sense. These big feelings, they make sense. Mad feelings are okay. Mad feelings are safe. And they'll go away. They don't last forever. They're not going to take you down. They're going to come and they're going to go. I like to tell my clients, it's just like rain, right? It's just like weather. It's never going to rain forever, but it will rain sometimes for a really long time. And we got to learn how to tolerate the discomfort of that feeling until it passes. And there's a saying in the therapy world, what we resist persists. And so if your child gets into a pattern of resisting discomfort, they are going to actually, paradoxically or counterintuitively, have more uncomfortable feelings over time, not less. The goal is to get your child to a place where they can handle the fact that they don't feel comfortable in that moment. Because disappointment, boredom, sadness, they are uncomfortable. They're not bad. All feelings are valid and good and healthy. But they are uncomfortable, right? We don't like to feel that way. So if we can help our kid by co-tolerating the distress with them, we're going to be equipping them with the most important life skill there is. From there, then we can talk about coping. But you can't talk about coping when you haven't even let your kid feel. Now you might be listening and you're like, okay, but I let my kid feel. Like, I don't have a problem with them feeling mad. Right, I get that. Intellectually, I am sure you know that it's good for your kid to feel their feelings. And yet, most of us, millennials, people raised in the 80s, 90s, we were parented in a way that told us to get up, brush it off. You're fine. Don't cry. Toughen up. We were not allowed to feel our feelings, were we? We were told to kind of get it together, stop overreacting, and let's move on. We were punished, shamed, shut down anytime that we tried to express emotions. And here's the thing. When you're a kid, your emotions are going to come out in messy ways, period, point blank. There's no way to avoid that because your brain is not developed enough for your emotions to come out in nice, mature ways yet. And I would argue that some adults still struggle with that, even as adults. So couple the fact that your kid is going to have their emotions flying out of them in messy ways with the fact that you were not allowed to feel your feelings as a kid. And even if you intellectually know that it's good to let your kid feel their feelings, your nervous system does not know that. Your nervous system is going to go into fight or flight and experience it as a threat the minute your child enters that discomfort. You're going to want to rescue them from it. You're going to want to fix it. You're going to want to make sense of it, understand the triggers so that it never happens again. You're going to want to lecture them on how those feelings came out of their body because you need them to know that it's not okay to hit. I would argue your kid, even if they're only 2, they already know it's not okay to hit. They just can't execute when they're under duress. How do we get better at executing? We have a parent or attached caregiver who shows up and sits in the muck with us, lets us be upset without trying to fix it, and who acts as that gutter guard, who doesn't let us let our feelings out by hitting, kicking, screaming, who gently stops us from hitting, but lets us be mad. That's the work, friends. Like that, there's no shortcut for that. So no, your child is not going to outgrow their emotional intensity. They might stop melting down, or they might not. I've had parents with 12, 13, 14-year-old kids come into my program, and their kids are having daily meltdowns. But for a lot of kids, they will outgrow the meltdowns themselves. They won't outgrow that emotional intensity, and they are so vulnerable to all of the different maladaptive coping skills, ways of turning the volume down on those big feelings when they don't have that important life skill of tolerating discomfort. And you are the only person who can really equip them with that skill because it needs to happen organically in the moment when your kid is having the feeling. And this is why children's books on emotions and feelings charts and calm down corners, like they have their place, but they are so misused. They are used to fix the feeling, to get the kid to stop feeling. And that is completely missing the point. So if this is resonating and you want to actually learn how to end the meltdowns, while also equipping your child with the ability to tolerate discomfort. So the best of both worlds, right? No more meltdowns, and your child knows how to do hard things, how to sit in the muck of uncomfortable feelings. I'm going to link a video for you in the show notes. It's called How to End the Meltdowns in 8 Weeks or Less. Check it out. Let me know what you think, and I'll catch you in the next episode.